Hi, welcome back. So far, we have gone through the IGCSE ICT subject as the introductory video, and then we had the first lesson on digital devices, and the second lesson was on peripheral input devices. The third lesson was on peripheral output devices, and today we are going to go through the lesson 4, which is on peripheral storage devices. So with this lesson, we conclude the chapter 1 of IGCSE ICT subject. If you haven't followed the previous lessons, go to IGCSE ICT playlist and you can follow the previous lessons in the correct order. There are some practice questions at the end of the lesson, so let's start the lesson. Hope you remember this screen from our previous lessons. We have completed the input and output devices, the first circle and the second circle. And this lesson is based on third category, which is storage devices. Okay. This is sort of a classification of memory and storage, and I have seen students confuse between memory and storage, and they use the words in the wrong manner. So let's see. Memory is what your computer uses to store data temporarily, while storage is where you save files permanently. When you save a file, it's copied from the memory onto the storage drive. Another example is if we take a mobile phone, storage is where you keep your data like music and photos and videos, and memory is where you run your apps and programs, and also the mobile phone operating system. In the screen, the blue color side is primary memory, and that is the memory that we use when we start a computer, like when it's booting the OS and starting software programs and etc. And in this lesson, our focus is on the storage devices that is marked in light green color, which is in the right side of the screen. So, secondary memory is permanent memory and non volatile, meaning the data we save will be there even when we switch off the device. So, under secondary memory, we learn on hard disk, SSD, CD, DVD, Blu ray, magnetic tape, flash memory. So, we will learn on these in detail. So, why we need secondary memory in the first place? It's pretty obvious, right? Secondary memory is a permanent or non-volatile memory, so we used to store our data and retrieve that data. And we also store our applications, apps and software in the secondary memory, which will be loaded to RAM when the user open the application. And secondary memory is also used as virtual memory. If we look at what virtual memory is the space allocated in a computer to store programs and instructions until they are needed or being used. And then, thanks to the secondary storage devices, we can back up our large volumes of data such as photos, songs, movies, and files, and etc. So, those are the uses of the secondary storage. This is also another misused words by the students, and this is also specifically mentioned in the previous exams, examiner reports as well. So let's see the difference between the storage device and the storage media. Let's take some examples so that you will understand clearly. The device that actually holds the data is known as the storage media. The device that saves data onto the storage media or reads data from it is known as the storage device. Sometimes the storage media is fixed or permanent part of the storage devices. For an example, the magnetic coated disk built into a hard drive. Sometimes the storage media is removable from the device. Example, CD-ROM can be taken out of a CD drive. Uh, Flash memory is the media used to store data, whereas USB drive is used to contain the flash media so that it can be read by the computer after it is plugged into a USB port. So those are some examples that you can see the difference between the CD-ROM and the CD drive. What is the storage device and what is the storage media, right? For IGCSE level, this is a screen of units of storage capacity, and for IGCSE level, you only need to know the first four rows. You don't need to remember the dark gray rows, the last four rows. So, data storage capacity is measured in bytes. We don't denote it with the letter B. Uh, so if you look at the first row, four rows, 1,000 bytes is known as a kilobyte, 1 kilobyte. So 1,000 b equals 1 kb, and then a million bytes is known as a megabyte. We write it as 1 MB. 1,000 million bytes is called a gigabyte, and we write it as a GB, 1 GB. And then we need to discuss about the data access speed. Some storage devices can access data very quickly, while others are like extremely slow. Access speeds are measured in bytes per second. We call it as Mbps. Uh, Slow devices have speeds measured in like thousands of bps, so we call it we normally tell kbps, kilobytes per second. Examples are like floppy disk can save or read data at a speed of 60 kbps, meaning floppy disk can save data or read data 60 kilobytes per second. Fast devices have speeds measured in millions of bps, like via mbps. So, for an example, a hard drive can read or save data at a speed of 300 mbps, meaning it can save or read data 300 megabytes per second. So that is like around 5,000 times quicker than a floppy disk. Okay, now let's see the types of secondary storage. Secondary storage cannot be accessed directly by the CPU. Secondary memory is non-volatile and used to store data permanently. So even if you switch off, the data is still there. And they are relatively cheap compared to the primary storage. And because of that, we can have larger secondary storage devices. Secondary storage devices can be classified into three main types: magnetic storage devices, optical storage devices, and solid state storage devices. Magnetic storage devices use magnetized fields on spinning metal disk to locate stored information and data. Uh, Examples are hard disk drives and magnetic tapes. Optical storage devices use lasers and microscopic light on a glued plastic or metal disk to locate stored information and data. So that's why since it's used laser, that's why we call it as optical storage. And for examples are CD, DVDs, and Blu-ray disc. The third category, solid state storage devices, make use of silicon microchips with transistors and an electrical current to determine the location of stored data. And examples for these are USB or the flash drive, and memory chips or the SSD cards. Secondary storage devices can be classified into three types. As we discussed in the previous screen, magnetic storage devices use magnetized fields on a spinning metal disk to locate the stored information data, and the optical storage devices use lasers and microscopic light on a glued plastic or metal disk to locate stored information. And solid state storage devices make use of silicon microchips with transistors and an electrical current to determine the location of the stored data. So you can see secondary storage devices. We have magnetic disk, optical disk, and memory storage devices. And on the magnetic disk, we have floppy disk, hard disk, and optical disk. We have CD-ROM, CD, DVD, and Blu-rays. And on the memory storage, the solid state, we have flash drives and memory cards. Okay, the most common storage device is the hard disk drive, and hard drives have a very large storage capacity, like terabytes, and they can be used to store vast amount of data. Like hard drives are like random access devices and can be used to store all types of films, including huge files such as yeah films, movies, and all that. And this data access speeds are very fast. Let's see the structure of a hard disk. uh, Please see the diagram on the screen. A hard disk contains a stack of platters, a circular metal disk that are mounted inside the hard disk drive and coated with magnetic material, sealed in a metal case or unit. And if you can see the platters. uh, Let me see. You can see a stack of platters, right, in the middle. And uh, and they are mounted inside the hard disk drive, and they are coated with magnetic material. And normally this is a covered closed unit to protect from the dust and all that. Hard disk has a electromagnetic read or write heads above and below the platters. Uh, you can see on top of on the screen top of the screen, there's a read write head pointing label pointing it to the read write head, and it's on top of the platters. All the platters make up a cylinder. So all together, when you look at all the platters, it sort of create a cylinder that spins on a central spindle. Look at the diagram, you can find the spindle there. So that cylinder platters that makes a cylinder spins on a central spindle. As I mentioned, this is sort of covered and sealed because even a particle or a dust particle can cause issues in a hard disk, because the gap between the platter and the read write head is only few nanometers. Look at the diagram, so you can see a set of platters, and top of that you can see the read write head, and the distance between these platters and this read write head is just few nanometers. So even a small smoke particle or a dust particle can cause issues in the hard disk. So that's why to prevent this, hard drives use filters, or it either it's sealed or they use filters to prevent this issue. Same as hard disk, magnetic tapes also allow to store large volumes of data, but retrieving data from magnetic tape is very slow, which is a disadvantage of using magnetic tapes. Okay. Now we are going to the second type, optical media devices. Uh, data written method in is different in these three types, like we uh, magnetic tapes and optical media. So there's a difference. And due to that difference, the storage capacity also changes in the optical media. In like if we take the CDs data is written using laser and can store up to about 700 MBs. And if we take DVDs, data is written using red laser light, and because of that, it allows to store more data up to 7 GB in single side and can go up to 18 GB both sides. And if we uh, check Blu-ray, Blu-ray writes data using violet laser light. You remember, right? In CDs, we are using laser, and in DVDs, we are using red laser light, and Blu-ray, we are using violet laser light. And it allows to store data densely because of the violet laser, and can store up to 25 GB in single side and can go up to 50 GB double side. That's how the name derived as Blu-ray. Ideally, it should be violet ray, but they thought Blu-ray is more trendier. Because of that, they started calling it Blu-ray. The third category of the storage device type that we discussed was solid state storage devices. The term solid state essentially means no moving parts. Solid state storage devices are based on electronic circuits with no moving parts. Like in the hard disk, we have the spindle and the tapes, reels of tape, and no laser beams, so nothing. So that's why we call this solid state storage devices and no moving parts. Solid state storage devices store data using a special type of memory called flash memory. And first type is USB memory sticks or thumb drivers. Have made in many other forms of portable storage almost obsolete. Uh, like why you want to burn a CD or a DVD when you can more easily copy your files onto a memory stick, right? In the early days when we didn't have this, people used to copy the data using software into their CDs or DVDs, and it was a hassle. Sometimes you cannot rewrite to the CD, and then you have to throw away those. So now you have the USB memory sticks where you can just plug into the USB port and copy your files. And also you can rewrite and delete and create add new more files likewise. Then we have memory cards, the second type. There are many varieties. Many of our digital devices like cameras, mobile phones, MP3 players, and extra etc. They are using these memory cards because they want more compact storage devices. So these memory cards are very compact and they can insert into their mobile phones and cameras, and MP3 players, and etc. One of the most common formats used by digital cameras is the SD card. The cards store the digital images taken by the camera, and mobile phones contain a subscriber identity module. We call it as a SIM in short, and that SIM contains the phone's numbers, the phone book, text messages, and etc. And many phones also have extra memory cards to store music, video, photos, and etc. And sometimes we call it as the tiny micro SD cards. Then we have smart cards, many credit cards, example chip and pin cards, door entry cards, satellite TV cards, etc. have replaced the very limited storage of the magnetic strip. The dark strip on the back of older cards uh, with flash memory, and this is more reliable and has a much larger storage capacity as well. Cards with flash memory are called smart cards. Okay, so now I guess you have learned many real life examples of solid storage devices and you are using it in your day-to-day life as well. So uh, next we will move. Okay. Here's a comparison of storage device types which you can read yourself. Uh, for an example, now here we are comparing hard disk, flash media, optical media, and magnetic tape. Uh, as we know, the flash media is the fastest day when we are accessing the data, and magnetic tape is the slowest. We mentioned that as the disadvantages of using magnetic tape. And then capacity wise, uh, hard disk can go up to more than the screen shows 1 to 80 GB, but there are hard disks nowadays uh, bigger than this. And we discussed about the optical media. The CD can go up to 700 MB, DVD could go up to 18 GB, and Blu-ray could go up to 50 GB. And the usage wise, hard disk we are using inside the servers, the personal computers, and the media is used in laptops and mobile devices. And the optical media more or less are used in multimedia like music, CDs, games, and films. And we are also using to back up our data. And for portability, the hard disk is not suitable because it's sort of fixed. And flash media, it's really portable. We can take it anywhere. And optical media, it's portability is possible, but uh, when it's portable, it could damage the optical media. Yeah. So you can read this one. And let's go through some of the simple questions that based on this lesson. First question: give two uses of secondary storage. Yeah, secondary storage. We discussed 4 points. We can store large amounts of data. We can store software applications, and we can back up our large volumes of important data and files. And also, secondary storage acts as virtual memory. So those are the 4 points that we discussed. Give three types of secondary storage devices. We discussed three types: magnetic storage devices, optical, and then flash, pen drives, SSDs, micro SDs, those stuff. Third one: what are the rough storage capacities of the following? Hard disk, CD, DVD, and Blu-ray. Okay. Hard disk drive, it can go up to, like, nowadays it's around 1 terabyte, and CDs it's about 700 MB. DVDs, it's one side 4.7 GB, and Blu-ray it's single sides it's 25 GB, and both sides it could go up to 50 GB. Next question: write two advantages of flash storage. Yeah, it's solid state. So because of that, it can handle shocks and drops. And flash memory storage is durable. And this read and write speeds are faster, and it's compact, and because of that it's easy to its portability is high. Okay, the next question: write one advantages of magnetic tape. Magnetic tape advantages: it provides a huge storage capacity. So when we are backing up large amounts of data, when we are backing up on daily lot of transactions, magnetic tape is ideal. But the disadvantages, if they ask, is it's very slow. Okay, this question I got from 2020 exam paper. The laptop can store 100. Okay, read the question again. The laptop can store 128 GB of data. Construct an expression to show how many bits are in 128 gig. So we learn 1 GB is 1024 MB, and 1 MB is 1024 KB, and 1 KB is 1024 bytes. So 1 byte has 8 bits. So they want the expression in bits. How many bits? So now we need to do the conversion into the expression. So number of bits equals the amount given is 128. Ideally, this should be 128 and multiplied by 1024 to convert it to MB, and then again multiply by 1024 to convert it to KB, and again multiply by 1024 to make it KB, and again multiply by 8 to convert the bytes into bits. You don't need to get a final answer, just put in the construct is enough to get the full marks. And I have put 1 GB, the first four lines you don't have to write in the exam, just put in the construct is enough. I have mentioned those for your understanding. Right, this is from 2016 June exam paper. Access to computer room is controlled by biometric scanners. Identify one biometric that can be scanned. Okay, this we discussed in the previous lesson. Uh, we can any answer like fingerprint or thumbprint. It could be retinal scan or face recognition or voice or speech recognition. We can mention any of these to get 1 mark. The second one, give one benefit of using a biometric scanner to gain access to the rooms. We discussed many advantages, and you need to write one. In the previous one, I have to tell you. In the first one, identify one biometric that can be scanned. They gave marks for fingerprint, thumbprint, and everything, but they didn't give marks for finger instead of fingerprint. So identify one biometric that can be scanned. If you write just finger, then you won't get marks. It has to be fingerprint. Okay. Right. Okay. We'll go back again to the second one. Give one benefit of using a biometric scanner to gain access to the rooms. Uh, yeah, it there are many benefits. Like you don't need the users to carry their ID, or they don't have to remember a password or anything. So that's a benefit, and because the person has to present himself, others cannot misuse or steal or guest or anything. So that's a safety measure is there. uh, yeah, you can write any of these. And then the third one, give one possible drawback of using a biometric scanner to gain access to the rooms. Okay. uh, let's say a fingerprint, sometimes the way you put your finger, sometimes it might not work, and so the scanner might not read it correctly, and there could be system failures. So when there's a system failure, there's no way that you can get access. And let's say there could be an injury happened, a temporary injury. Let's say your finger got some injured, and now there's no way that you can access. So those are few drawbacks of using biometric scanners. Okay, so with this, we conclude the lesson on storage devices, and we are now done with IGCSE ICT Chapter 1. So, next lesson will be on Chapter 2, a new chapter. So, until next lesson, goodbye and good luck with your studies.